Your name is not your name. The document in the drawer, the one with your photo, the one the man in the dark suit brought last spring, says something else. A different boy, a different birthday, a different father. You have never told anyone what your real name is. Not because you don't know, because you were taught before you could read that some words are never spoken out loud. You are 10 years old. You live in a mansion on the edge of a lake that does not appear on public maps. The lake is called Valdai. The mansion has 17 rooms you're allowed to enter, a hockey rink your father had built for the two of you, a go-kart track that curves around the east side of the property, and a chapel named after the saint whose name you actually carry, Saint Vladimir. You know this because one of your tutors told you and then looked immediately at the door, as if the door might be listening. Outside the gate, 3 kilometers of fence, cameras on every post, anti-aircraft systems you can see from your bedroom window if the morning is clear. There is a country of 144 million people. Not one of them knows you exist. Chapter 1. The first thing you remember. Lugano, Switzerland, spring 2015. The first thing you remember is not a face. It's a sound. A voice somewhere above you, very loud, not afraid. The kind of loud that means something good happened. A shout you felt before you could understand words. Hooray, Nakonets, Malchik, hooray. Finally, a boy. You have heard this story many times. The guards tell it, the nannies tell it. Once, when you were 6 and couldn't sleep, one of the tutors told it to you like a bedtime story, the way other children hear fairy tales. The man in the story is your father. He was not in the room when you were born. He was never in the room. He does not exist officially in relation to you. Not in any document the Russian state keeps, not in any database that can be searched by anyone who is not him. But when he heard, when someone called and told him, he shouted. You know this the way you know most important things. Not because anyone sat you down and explained it, but because it leaked through the walls of the estate the way water leaks through old stone. A sentence here, a story there. Adults who forget for one moment that you are listening. The clinic where you were born is called Sant'Anna. It is in the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, a city called Lugano. You have never been back. You have seen photographs, white walls, clean lines, the Alps in the distance, pale and enormous. The doctor who delivered you was a woman named Natalia. She had known your father for more than 30 years. She flew from Switzerland to Moscow 4 years later when your brother was born. You have a brother. His name is Vladimir. He is 6. He does not yet understand most of what you understand. You are trying to decide whether that is better or worse. Chapter 2. The woman who is not your mother. You call her Alessia. Everyone calls her Alessia. She is the one who interviews the tutors, who meets the nannies on their first day, who hands out the schedules and the rules and the laminated card with the list of things that must not be discussed outside the residence. She is, as far as anyone on staff officially knows, your mother. She is not your mother. She is your mother's cousin. You figured this out when you were 7. Not because anyone told you, no one tells you anything directly, ever, but because of a hockey game. Your father had come in the evening. He comes in the evening sometimes when the armored train has made the 4-hour journey from Moscow and the helicopter has crossed the lake. The staff quarantines for 2 weeks before he arrives. The whole compound changes when he is coming. The guards stand differently. The nannies speak more quietly. Even the air in the hallway feels different, tighter, like before a storm. You played hockey, your team, you and your father. The other team, 4 FSO agents in full gear. Your team won. You knew even then that the agents were letting you win. But the winning still felt like something real. Afterward, your father put his hand on your head. Brief the way he does everything, like he is always about to leave, like staying in one place too long is a weakness. And he said something in your ear. You remember the weight of his hand more than the words. Then he left through the private corridor to the part of the mansion you are not allowed to enter. And you ran, the way you always run after a match, full speed across the ice in your skates, toward Alessia, who was watching from the stands. But you stopped, because you saw the box, behind the glass. Behind the panel of dark, opaque glass at the far end of the rink that you had always assumed was a wall, there was a shape, a person, watching. And when the match ended and you stood there in the middle of the ice, you did not run to Alicia, you ran toward the glass. The figure stepped back, deeper into the darkness. Later that night, Alicia came to your room to say goodnight, the way she does every night, and you asked her, who was behind the glass? She smoothed your blanket. She did not look at you when she answered. No one, Vanya. Go to sleep. You're 10 now. You know who was behind the glass. You have never asked again. Chapter 3. The Rules of the Compound. There are rules here that no one wrote down. You learn them the way you learn a language, by making mistakes, watching faces, understanding slowly what the silence after a certain question actually means. Rule 1. You do not leave. Not the estate, not the grounds. The fence is 3 kilometers around the lakeshore. You have walked it twice with a guard 3 steps behind you the whole time. On the other side of the gate, a parking lot always full, 80 cars at least. People who work here but live in the outer buildings. People who are allowed to go home. You are not allowed to go home. This is home. Rule 2. The staff does not know your last name. They call you Ivan. Some of the tutors, the ones from abroad, the South African English teacher who arrived last winter, the Bosnian music teacher who has been here since before you can remember, they just call you by your first name, very carefully, the way you hold something expensive. They receive instructions from Alessia. Alessia receives instructions from assistants. The assistants receive instructions from somewhere you cannot see. Once a week, a message comes through. Sometimes gratitude. Sometimes a note about the lessons. The older tutors say, be grateful for any message. It means they are pleased. Rule 3. You do not ask about the outside. You know Russia is at war. You know this because you are being taught Chinese. Fluent Chinese, every day, 2 hours. And once your father mentioned it in a way that was not really about you, said it to a room of school children somewhere thousands of kilometers away, the little ones in my family speak Chinese. And the words traveled through the internet to a clip someone showed one of the tutors who tried not to react but did, slightly, around the eyes. You know about Ukraine the way you know about other things. In fragments, in silences, in what is not said. You know that the yacht trips that used to go to the Mediterranean now stay inside Russian waters. The Gulf of Finland. The Black Sea. Safe waters, Alicia says, which is not an explanation. Rule 4, the most important rule. The one that was never stated, but is the foundation of everything. You do not exist. Not in the databases, not in the schools, not in any record a journalist or a court or a foreign government could find. Your documents, the ones with the other name, the ones the man in the dark suit brought, are the kind of documents made for spies, for people who need to disappear inside a country that is watching. You are 10 years old and you have been a spy since you were born. Chapter 4. What you have. Let's be precise about what you have. You have a go-kart track. You use it most mornings, alone or with Vladimir, who is still learning, who crashes into the low wall on the south curve every third lap and then laughs, which makes you laugh too, which is the closest thing to uncomplicated that your life contains. You have a Lego collection that fills an entire room. You have 4 iPads, one of which is just for games and one of which is for video calls with tutors. You have a private cinema, a bowling alley, a casino, though you are 10. So the casino is more of a room with green tables that adults use when they visit, which they do sometimes after the mandatory 2 weeks of quarantine. You have a chess tutor who visits on Thursdays, a swimming coach 5 mornings a week, a gymnastics trainer from the former Russian national team whose name no one uses, just the coach. You competed last spring. Your results, the dossier center would later report, were not promising. You know this because you felt it in the room, the coach's careful expressions, the silence where applause should have been. You have Disney. This is important. You have access to every Disney film and you have watched most of them at least 4 times. And you have costumes, the good ones, properly made, for several of the characters. This, everyone agrees, is something your father would dislike if he knew, which is why no one tells him. He prefers Soviet cartoons. He has said this publicly. You prefer things with color and music and characters who want something they don't have, who go somewhere to find it. You have books in Russian, English, German, and Chinese. You have a music teacher who comes twice a week. You have a private chapel where confessions are heard. named after Saint Vladimir. Your real patron saint? Your real name, spoken in stone above the door. What you do not have? A friend your own age, not a real one. Sometimes, on holidays, when the quarantine is done, families are allowed to visit. Children arrive. They are cautious children. They understand without being told that something about this place requires caution. You play with them for the afternoon. Then the 2 weeks end and they go back to the outside. You do not have a birthday anyone outside this compound knows. You do not have a school. Your tutors receive their assignments from assistants. They have almost no direct contact with your parents, most often about once a week. One source would later tell investigators the governesses receive messages from Malaysia, and then, more rarely, from further up. The messages have two authors. One is the cousin. The other is further away, behind glass, watching. You do not have a name the world will ever call you by. What you do have, the thing that sits at the center of all of it, that makes the isolation make a kind of terrible sense, is this. A father who, when he heard you were born, shouted like something had been returned to him that he thought was gone forever. You have held onto that shout for 10 years. It is the most real thing you own. Chapter 5. The evenings he comes. He arrives late, always late. The armored train takes 4 hours from Moscow. There is a platform, specially built, that no public railway map shows. From the platform, a helicopter, 20 minutes across the water. By the time he reaches the main house, it is usually after 9. You are supposed to be asleep. You are not asleep. You hear the compound change. The guards standing differently at their posts. You can tell by the sound of boots on the gravel, a particular kind of attention. The lights in the outer corridor shifting. The silence that is not silence but a held breath. And then, hockey. The rink is lit before he reaches it. You are already there. The ice still cold from the afternoon maintenance, your skates laced tight, your stick in your hand. The FSO agents file in on the other side. 4 of them. Strong men, trained men. Men who could take you apart like a problem. They will lose. You know this. They know this. Everyone in the building knows this. Your father sets the terms, and the terms are his team wins. You play on his team. For 40 minutes, you're just a boy. And his father, playing hockey against men who are not allowed to beat them, on a rink built beside a lake, in a compound that doesn't exist, in a country that is at war with its neighbor while 144 million people sleep. None of them knowing that the man who governs them is here, in the ice light, watching his secret son try to score. He barely speaks during the games. Sometimes a word, good Vanya, and you hold it like something you found. After the game, the hand on the head. Brief, the corridor. The part of the building where you do not go. You told your tutors once, you have told everyone once, about the shout when you were born. Yura, Nakonets, Malchik. You tell it like a story someone else told you. You tell it the way you retell a film you've seen so many times you no longer know if you remember it, or have just memorized the description. But you tell it, every time, because a boy who has almost nothing that belongs to him will carry the one thing that does. Somewhere tonight, your father is in the Kremlin, or on the train, or behind the opaque glass. Somewhere tonight, your brother is asleep in the next room, having crashed the go-kart again, having laughed again, still young enough that the compound is just the world, and the world is enough. Somewhere tonight, a journalist in exile is adding to a document. A Swiss newspaper is verifying a flight record. A recruitment agency for wealthy Russian families is posting an ad. English teacher, South African passport preferred, $7,700 per month. Accommodation provided. Leaving the property is strictly prohibited. And somewhere in Valdai, in a mansion beside a lake ringed with anti-aircraft systems, a 10-year-old boy is not asleep. He is listening to the compound, waiting for the sound of boots on gravel, waiting for the ice to be lit. He does not have a name the world knows. He does not have a school. He does not have a friend who is not also, in some way, an assignment. But once, just once, a man who controls a country and its armies and its silence heard that this boy existed and shouted. The question Ivan Putin will spend his entire life answering is not who his father is. It is whether that shout was love, or just relief that the dynasty had a boy. Subscribe to POV Intel. New video every week. There are 1,000 more worlds like this one. You haven't been inside any of them yet. POV Intel, the view from inside.